Hello, welcome back. In this lesson, we're going to focus on building single lines, okay, with your technique. Sometimes, especially when crossing strings, doing an alternating index and middle, that can make you want to reach for your pick and bail on this finger picking thing, at least for the moment. But stick with me because I think some of these little tips might be helpful for you. The other thing that this opens up is that when we have open strings ringing out while we're doing other picked notes, it gives you a really nice piano sustain pedal feeling that you won't get if you're playing with a pick. So I hope I've sold you on that idea, so let's dig in to how to get started with this. First thing we're going to do is get comfortable just going index, middle, index, middle, index, middle on a single string. What's tricky about that is sometimes if you play an index middle, going back to the exact same string where you just were can sometimes actually hit some of the surrounding strings on accident, right? So just kind of zooming in on that and getting comfortable with going. That's an important technique to get used to. After you get comfortable with that, and this doesn't take too long, it's just getting sort of a familiarity with how far you have to aim to shoot that finger to get to the string there. Then we're going to change something with the left hand. And so we're going to do something basically in a C scale here. Actually, a G scale. So what we're doing here is we're going to go open, first finger here on the left hand, and then third on the B string there, and then all the way up to the high E. Okay? So we have... Now here's a tricky thing. Now, at this point, we've done 3 notes that are on a single string. Now we have to jump to the next string. And it just so happens, it works out in the sequence of our alternating index, middle, that the very next one is a middle. So that feels a little more comfortable if you're going from index to middle. But there are situations where it may be the opposite, as you'll see coming up here, where you actually have to cross a string, but maybe you end on a middle, and then you have to cross to the next string to do an index. And that can feel a little bit strange or a little bit awkward. But when you zoom in on the awkward spot and get feeling comfortable with that, then you zoom back out and the problem is solved. And that's one of the best ways. Instead of playing through the whole thing, sometimes it's helpful to zoom into the actual problem area, solve that, get comfortable with that, and then put it back into context. And you'll feel like you're progressing quicker that way. Sometimes the slowest you can practice something is the fastest way to get it. So what we're going to do is go index, middle, index, middle. So then the next measure, we have index on the high E, and then you're going to go to your middle, the third finger here, but M down on the picking hand on the 3rd fret. All right, so we're basically going to go index on the 3rd here, and then second finger goes here while you do your second finger here, so that works out, 2 and 2. And then we're crossing back down to the string. So here we have an open E with the index, and you have to go back here with the middle. So doing that a couple of times, just going index on high E, middle on that the 3rd fret of the B string. Getting comfortable with kind of like having to hop over to get that note. Okay, and now we're going to go all the way down here to the G, and this is going to be with your index. So G, and then the 2nd fret on the G, and then we have the first, using your first finger here on the open on the B, and then 3rd fret on the B as well. And then you have index. And when you're crossing down, right, that we're spanning 3 strings. Let's zoom in and look at that. You have your middle on the B string here, and then you're going to have your first finger down here. You're going to go middle, index, middle, and that's going to be open, 2nd finger on your left hand, and then open. So you have M, I, M, M, I, M. Just getting comfortable with those situations is helpful. So now we'll put that together, and here's what that would sound like. All right. Now, one one thing that's really, really awesome about the guitar is the way that it's set up, that you can play the same pitch in multiple places. I can play this note here, I can play it here, I can play it here, I can play it here, right? All of those are the same pitch. On piano, one spot gives you that pitch, and that's where it is, and that's it. Piano has more of a spread of notes, a wider range, but guitar has a lot of different timbre, a lot of different versions of that same pitch. And so we want to use this to our advantage. If you have an available open string, and then you can actually hop to another spot on the fretboard to play the pitch that you need, you get a very unique sound. So instead of thinking of, now we have, okay, I started with an open B, which we did before, but instead of going to my first finger here, I'm actually going down to the G on that string and using the third finger on the 5th fret. And you can hear how you get just a little bit more sustain out of it instead of, right? And that's a really cool thing about that's very unique to guitar. And this actually comes from some banjo-style playing. So connecting some single note lines like this is really, really fun. So we have to thank the banjo players for this way of approaching things. So what you want to do is we're going to do the same melody, but we're going to chart it out in a different way, utilizing these open strings and these higher fretted notes. So the way that we'll start with that is start with your index on open B there. Then you're actually going to use your thumb here on the 5th fret of the G. You'll use the P down here. So now becomes, what's cool is that it may feel a little bit more complicated with the fingers here doing these single notes, but it's actually less movement down here, isn't it? Right? So now the next measure, instead of, now we're going to go up to the 8th fret with your first finger. And this is where it gets a little tricky, but first finger here, and then if you have we've talked in this course up to this point, making sure that you have a really good stable neutral hand position. That means that your thumb is lined up with wherever your middle finger goes, and remember, keeping your thumb back. So if you arch it up too high, this may feel more tricky. But you're going to do your first finger on the 8th fret of the B, and then the pinky is going to go on the 11th fret of the G. And then all we have to do is grab an open E from what we had before. So less movement, even though we're hopping to a different spot in the neck, less movement, but it sounds cooler too. And then I'm jumping all the way back down to the 3rd, so it sounds like this. And then I'm going to go open on G, and I'm just going to use my pinky here. All I'm doing is open on G, thumb with your the pinky on the 7th fret on your left hand on the D string, and then thumb on the D, and then go all the way up, middle, so you have middle on that open B, and then index with your 4th finger here, index on 7, so it just looks like open, 7, open, 7. And then you have, I'm going to use my 4th finger here. You can use your 2nd or 4th finger, either one will work here. You'll use your first finger on this, your I, and then the 4 on your left hand. And all I'm doing here is the 5th fret, open on the B, 2nd fret with your first finger, and then on the D, and then you just repeat that exact same thing again. And we're just going to end with a G there. So now we've heard, we zoomed in to the detail of what's happening with this. I wanted to have a good contrast between playing a single note line 2 different ways. So you hear the same melody played just the way you would normally learn a scale on guitar, but then now in fingerpicking, giving you another option so that these melodies, and as you're building the finger intuition of knowing what finger goes not only to what string, but also to what fret when you're looking for melodies, now there are some new options here for you to explore that give you these nice sustained open string sounds. So let's try this now at performance tempo. This will be at 120 beats per minute. 1, 2, ready, go. Now that you've heard what it sounds like in context, up to performance tempo with the backing track. In the next lesson, we're going to go through 3 different passes at 3 different tempos. So I'll see you there. Bye.